Aviation has been a passion of mine since I was a kid. So I played in the NFL a lot longer than I imagined I would. Very fortunate to play as long as I did. Michael, my golf game is not that good because on the off seasons I wasn't playing golf. I was at the airport building up my hours.
Wow.
So aviation has been in my blood for forever. I did go on and I was captain rated 757 pilot on a Boeing 757 for ATA Airlines. It's no longer around anymore. And actually, DCA was one of my routes, and it's very tragic what happened. But yeah, I've been involved in aviation for quite a while. I'm not a pilot current right now anymore. My company, we build runways, so I
Oh,
still
wow.
uh, keep my interest levels are still fed just by being around the
Yeah.
system.
Pat, like you said, that was one of your roots. Is there anything notable about flying into DCA? Different?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. One of the things about the airline industry is one of the things that I miss by being involved in it is the professionalism. I mean, everybody out there counts on one another, and you don't count on one another because you don't, in a nervous way. You do it because you know they have the experience, they have the aptitude, they pass the test, and they understand the system. So it works like an orchestra. This particular airport does add additional challenges to it. You do have to, I believe there's a special sign off or an endorsement for pilots to be able to fly into that airport space due to the restrictions, the air restrictions around located all around that airport. You have the White House, you have the Pentagon, you got the Capitol, the Washington Monument. So there's certain procedures that aren't normal. They are normal for any signed off rated pilot to fly in there, but they are different.
We have heard what we've gathered so far. Is there any sort of theory that you have as to what happened? I've heard some pilots who have speculated that the Black Hawk might have thought that they saw the aircraft, but in fact had actually been looking at an aircraft that was more in the distance and never saw the commercial flight that was coming into land. What do you make of from what we've gathered, the information that we've learned so far, Pat?
Yeah, this tragic incident is something that obviously at this point there's going to be a lot of speculation, uh, which is normal and which is fair for the flying public, right?
Yeah,
They want to know what happened so their next flight will be safe, or
yeah,
what if the same situation happens on my flight? One thing I will share, which a lot of people, the flying public knows, the NTSB will do a thorough investigation. The FAA will take a huge role in what happened because even though it's aviation, this is not something that happens. It's a very safe industry right now, and the technology, even since when I was flying, has gotten even better. So, but you are close. This is completely my speculation that there's certain procedures, like I said. So, the pilots of the regional plane, they were locked in. And that's not to say that the Black Hawk pilots were not. But the reason I say they were locked in for a long time because this approach starts approximately 80 miles outside of the airport, whereas a typical approach, you're vectored in via ATC and the air traffic control tower to a certain point, and then you're established and you land. Whereas this one, there's certain points that you have to hit. I believe we call it a star, a standard arrival uh, procedure that you do.
right.
And with that said, you have to understand there's a language between pilots and air traffic control. And from listening to the flight recorder, from what I picked up, the Black Hawk helicopter was communicating with the tower. The tower was communicating with the helicopter, asking him if he had the regional jet in sight.
Right.
And even though that sounds like a common question, the response is a direction of duty. So when the military helicopter says on the tape, that's what we do know, I do have traffic in sight, and he went above and requested manual separation. I will avoid the plane. That allows the air traffic controller to take his eyes off of that situation because now he's delegated that responsibility of separation to the helicopter
Right.
pilot. The reason he asked the helicopter pilot uh, to avoid is because the regional jet is on a flight path
Right.
that is published. This
Right.
is where he needs to be. He's concentrating and he's established on the approach. So
Right.
therefore, he needs to focus on staying on that approach and then circle to land on that other runway.
Right.
And so it's up to the helicopter pilot to avoid that aircraft on the final approach, especially when he takes all the responsibility of himself. So
So,
what I
Pat, does
really,
that indicate then that you think, because I mean, he's indicated it. Did it almost seem to you like the air traffic controller? He's looking at his radar and he sees, hey, these two look like they could be on a path here, and he verified that the helicopter pilot did have a visual of the airplane.
Michael, if this was in the middle of Indiana, even though that helicopter pilot said, "Yep, I have him in sight," you shouldn't be that close.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah.
We're in an area at nighttime where separation of aircraft is so tight that there's no time to assume, but to trust and follow uh, procedure.
Right.
And so I've flown in that space. It's very dangerous in uh, locations like that because of the ground lights. You know, when it's a clear night, well, that's not just it's not ideal sometimes because now you don't have a background.
Right.
You can't tell the difference between a street light and maybe an aircraft
Right.
or a drone or a helicopter. And another thing, you know, helicopters move in different ways.
Right.
Uh, and so I'm sure the pilots of the regional jet, they're trusting the system, knowing that in their peripheral, they may see traffic, it's being vectored away from them.
Right.
So it's very tragic. I don't want to place blame because obviously we don't have all the facts and
Right.
details, but the way it seems is that he may have identified a different aircraft. Because remember, just like at a sporting event, air traffic control, they line these aircraft up in a nice line. And so you look to the left, even when we're driving in our cars, Michael,
Yeah.
if it's a, you know, if it's, you're in a situation, an intersection, your wife tells you, hey, you see that car, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking at the SUV way up the block, but she's talking about the car, you know, that's 20 feet away from you. And that's what it seems that may have happened.